Hello guys and welcome to Fibbl webinar episode 5, Sandqvist 3D Experience. We are very pleased to welcome Sia, Head of E-commerce at Sandqvist, and Mia, Project Manager at Grebban. Alongside me as always, Mattias, Head of Customer Success at Fibbl. So thank you very much for joining us here today. Sia, to kick things off, would you mind just sharing a little bit more about the brand Sandqvist?
Yeah, sure. Sandqvist is a bags and accessory brand that was founded 20 years ago of 3 friends and 2 brothers. They design bags and backpacks for everyday life with a minimalistic design. And I don't know for how many years we've been online, but we're selling across the globe, basically.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And Mia, would you mind telling us a little bit more about Grebban?
Grebban is a leading e-commerce agency which creates extraordinary e-commerce experiences for digital flagship stores for brands globally and primarily for D2C brands.
Okay, thank you very much. Mattias, can you describe Sandqvist's user experience with Fibbl?
Sure. So they have utilized what we call 3D first, which is when you lead with the 3D model and you have the 2D content secondary. And on top of that, they have also added a dimensions feature. So the customer can directly view the dimensions of the bags directly at the first place.
So I think also we will somewhere here in the video put a QR code so you can actually scan it with your phone and then place the bag into your environment with your smartphone. So you can try that if you want during this session as well. But Sia, I'm a bit curious, why did you at Sandqvist start looking into 3D in the first place?
We didn't really, because you guys approached us, but we were looking into solutions of how to improve our product presentation because our return rate was high, and the reason was about 70% was due to product presentation. That it was smaller than expected or bigger, and the color didn't match and so on. So we were looking for that, and then you came along, and this was a good match in order to make the customer understand our product while shopping online.
Okay, cool. And also, what's sort of your current e-commerce strategy, and how does this technology fit into that strategy?
Well, we want to scale globally. We have, apart from Sweden, our main markets are UK, France, and Germany, and we plan to grow in the US. But we are also very driven on both profitability, but also emission, where we hope to not. Where we hope to maintain the same emission level now while still growing. And therefore we need to have multiple initiatives that both reduces our return rate in general and then make it a more circular economy in general as well. But that's the strategy, to grow responsibly, basically.
Mia, Grebban creates extraordinary e-commerce experience for global brands. What do you think makes this user experience so special?
I think it's special because for me personally, I have not seen this kind of feature at many e-commerce sites. And I think this gives another dimension for the customers. I worked in retail for many years, way back. And my customers back then, they always told me how they prefer to be able to flip and turn the bags and see all the features and details of it. And with the Fibbl, it feels like this becomes possible for Sandqvist's customers to they will get closer to the physical store experience with the help of Fibbl.
I agree. The next step is to also have the inside, I think, which we will work on together.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually a replicate of the physical store, twist and turn, and also the size.
Yeah, and I think that's we hear a lot of from different clients that they would like to some sort of mimic the offline, like the retail store behavior, and move it online. So I think that's where we at least hope the technology is going. So we hear that a lot from our different customers.
Yeah, and I think as well, to add to what you said before, I think it's so nice to hear that you guys have so aggressive growth goals, but you also maintain the level of impact on the environment. Because I mean, we have had a few webinars like this, and we talk about that, the cart rates and conversion rate and stuff like that. But the whole reason for why Fibbl exists is to actually become more like a physical store. Because physical stores has like 1 to 2% return rates, while online has 30, 40, 50 sometimes. So it's so nice to hear that we're actually making an impact together here. Really cool.
Yeah. And Mia, what's your view on extraordinary user experience? Or what trends are you seeing at the moment in this space?
Well, I've seen some trends that I read a report a couple of months ago where they asked e-commerce owners what they think will bring the most positive impact on their growth during these economic times we're currently in. And one of the top 3 answers was to enhance or improve the customer buying experience online. And this is something I've noticed among our clients lately, that the focus has shifted to improving the product page, the checkout, and the search, instead of doing new features and stuff like that. So I think one of the steps to improve the product page would certainly be adding something like this with the 3D or AR implementation.
Okay.
I'm a bit curious on that as well, because I think it's interesting to hear from you that sits with so many brands.
Yeah.
So we think that one day you won't need images, but it's a matter if Google accept that, and you need to have an image today.
Yeah.
In some marketplaces and some placements. But like, if you really think of it, you could replace it, because you get, I don't know what's the most standard thing, 5-6 images, and then you see the entire product. But with 3D, you see everything like you want it. But how do you guys see that in the future when it comes to designing like BDPs and things like that?
I think that the customer expect to see the product in a lifestyle situation as well. So I think the 3D part will be able to replace some of the static photos, of course, but yet have the lifestyle pictures among the 3D, I still think will be important, and especially video for clothes and stuff like that will also be super important.
Makes sense. That's our next target, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
To combine 3D with lifestyle.
Yeah. And I also think, like, from a technical point of view, the fidelity of 3D has been so much improved. So now you can actually lead with the 3D model. That wasn't like you can do that a few years back because the quality of the 3D model wasn't good enough. So you can maybe you can explain our concept 3D first again.
Yeah, so that's basically when you lead with the 3D model first and you have the 2D content secondary. So instantly when you come into the page, you see that it's loading, but we don't want to just show a blank screen until it's ready, because of course it weighs a little bit more than an image. So we always rely on the background image, the fallback image of the first product image. But basically, after 1 second or 2, you have the 3D model, so you as an end consumer can decide how you want to experience the product. But I think we will cut something in here so you guys can see it as well visually.
Yeah. And Sia, why did you start working with Fibbl?
Well, we wanted to give the customer a more enhanced experience online, and Fibbl really provided realistic 3D photos or 3D experiences, which I think still isn't always the case. And that was a main concern as well for us, that we we value how the product is presented and that it should feel realistic. So we went with Fibbl due to the fact that it was of high quality and that it felt real for the customer to really look at the product, and that it wasn't a fake 3D image as it often is.
Yeah. Mattias, do you have any other insights on what we are discussing or potential next steps when it comes to the 3D?
For Sandqvist, or?
Yeah, for Sandqvist.
Yeah, of course. So, I don't know, we haven't talked so much about it yet because it's fairly new collaboration, but I know for a fact that the returns is the main reason for why you started with Fibbl. And I think maybe we will talk more about that later, but I know that you have seen that a lot of people click on the dimensions. So there is an interest to view the dimensions of the bags right away. And for that, I think that the natural next step, let's see if that happens or not, is the augmented reality placement, where you can actually place the bag in front of you. And due to the smartphones today, it's actually a 1-to-1 scale, which is pretty interesting because you could just have a button, see it in AR, and you can explain it's a 1-to-1 dimension. But you can also, with the help of you guys, experiment a little bit with the UX and UI to put that in context. For example, put your favorite bag that you have currently and try the Sandqvist bag to see the dimensions. So that could be yet another tool that could help the customer.
Yeah.
But that's just a hypothesis. So we always test and learn from data. So, but I think that's a natural next step. But let's see what we do.
Yeah, and I'm also curious around the product returns. What would you say are the 3 main reasons for your customers returning your products?
Well, it has been a size mismatch and color that wasn't as expected and so on. But now it's rather that, like, I didn't like the item or I changed my mind and so on, which is, a reason that you can't really, it's hard to fight fully because people will decide somewhat when it actually arrives. But we are seeing a reduction of return reasons being that the size wasn't as expected or the quality and the product not being as they expected it to be, and that we think is due to that they really can look at the product and understand the dimensions better than they did before. So we are, we had about 70% being product related reasons or product presentation related reasons last year, and now it looks like we have about 40% of them being due to product presentation. And not all products have Fibbl also. So if that continues, then we have a really good track of reducing that, reducing the returns, but also reducing the reason for the returns.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
That's so interesting, I think, because the UX and UI of Sandqvist is what many of us dreams of, I think, at least by the ones looking at this. And if you look at it today, it's not unclear how to find the dimensions. Like, you have a specific box for that. But I guess having it so accessible, because we built the dimensions feature with you and for you, and having it right in the face makes the difference and helps the user. And my only conclusion of that is that we live in a TikTok society where people have like this attention span. So even though it's a very clear UX and UI for the product specifications and the measurements, it's remarkable that it has such a high difference, if that's the only reason, of course. But
yeah, but it's not only, it's in the details of our product information and all, but it's also a common reason, contact reason for our customer service. So they also contact them and ask them which computer will fit and how big is it and so on. So we will reduce both the contact reason, hopefully, and then the return reason being due to dimensions. And we do see that people are using the toggle to look at the dimension and so on. So we believe this will educate the customer and make a more informed purchase.
Super cool. I remember when we talked about the feature on the office to build it, like, it makes sense, obviously, but I would never have imagined that it had such an impact and that so many would actually click it right away. It's pretty interesting to see how the consumer works.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Mia, what's your view on the technical implementation of Fibbl service?
The technical implementation was smooth and hassle-free. Our developer, shout out to Victor, he was handed your documentation, which was easy to follow. And during the process, he also had quick access to any questions and such with you, Mattias, and also developers on Fibbl's end. And also, when we were implementing Fibbl, we also had some feedback from Sandqvist and Fibbl. And it was all super easy to implement and adjust until it was done.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think one also thing that when we develop the product, it's very important that our brands can customize the integration and how it looks. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more on that, Mattias.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, the majority of components and elements is customizable, so it's highly individual. And I think for Sandqvist specifically, we added a specific background that is out of the standard that we have. And I think we also repositioned a bit of the elements. So one option is to, first of all, do you want to have the dimensions or not at that touch point, so to say. But we also have an expand button, so you can watch it in a larger mode, so to say. And I remember, I think it was a bit of customization with that as well. You're the one that asking the questions here, but if I may ask a question, because I think you have done something unique from a UX and UI perspective as well that we haven't seen before, and that is how you have integrated the 3D viewer into the image carousel. Talk a little about that one, because I think I proposed a toggle behavior. I think we can show something here how it usually looks on like 20 other brands, but you made it a little bit differently.
Yeah. So for us at Grebban, e-commerce design is something that we live and breathe, and with many third parties, by implementing a third party, it might imply that the look and feel of the site will be compromised. But with Fibbl, we really felt that we could align the design like tailored into the Sandqvist look and feel. And regarding the toggle, we simply implemented Fibbl into the existing image slider on the product page, and the toggle is appearing next to the 3D picture, or what you call it. And it's also tailored, as I just mentioned, that
it's so smooth. I think you can, because usually, like you saw here, people have to switch back and forward between having 3D or 2D.
Yeah.
But you guys took it one step further, and it's like you have the 3D, and then it feels like just a part of the media carousel.
Yeah. The only thing we had to remove was it was a slideshow or a sliding carousel before. So if we would have kept that, you would have just spin the product.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we added a arrow, but apart from that, I think it's an enhanced experience, and having it like that. And the only sometimes concern might be like the load time, and just make sure that it doesn't load. But then it would. Then it's usually the Wi-Fi that is a problem, not Fibbl being too heavy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I also showed some of my friends the Sandqvist 3D bags when the project was live, and many of them said like, wow, this must have been complicated to build, because they thought that we at Grebban built this, but it was not that complicated.
Looking at the result, it looks like a more complicated integration than it actually was. It was very quick and smooth from all ends, and we made a few integrations, and also with the 3D parties, so it can be very time consuming, regardless of what the partner says. It will take in time. Like then and especially since we are picky and want it to be very on brand from both ends. So I think that was a welcome surprise, or just like a really nice experience that it was as easy as promised.
I mean, you shouted out Victor before. I was going to shout out Victor. But can't you, now you didn't do the coding yourself, but can't you share a little bit of the implementation experience? So what did you guys have to do for customization, and what came out of the box?
Like, I'm not a developer myself, but I had to ask Victor before I went here, and it was super simple. He's a front-end developer, and he just added your technology, or I don't want to say a string of code because it wasn't that simple, but he just had to add it to our existing image slider, and it depends on every website and code base how that looks like and how complicated it is to merge that into the image slider. Yeah. But on our end, it was not that complicated. Yeah. What took most time was to like finalize the last touch. I think that we got the right background, that font and everything was exactly as we wanted it to be. So
cool. And I think there is also not now become very, very technical, but there is also one thing in the script that you did, which is to control how big the bag should be at the initial view.
Yeah.
And I think you mentioned a little bit about the connection and Wi-Fi and so, and I think with that parameter, it looks even more smooth because your image is exactly as big as the bag. And as you can see here, cut it in, we are loading everything transparently above the image. Yeah. So, and I think you can try it yourself as well, that you can click the arrow and everything will become normal. You won't have a 3D model popping out from nowhere. So you can go to the second position as well. And that makes it feel much like a more natural part. Like you said, it doesn't feel like something is slapped onto something. It's like an integrated part.
Yeah. And also like if people want to try Fibbl, I really think they should, because for me, as I said earlier, that coming into Sandqvist site and find out that you can flip and turn the bags like this, I can go into the site like once a week just to check it out and like, this is so cool, because I have not seen it this professionally done before. And I think that it's important during these economic times that e-commerce sites keep trying and doing things that stick out, because sites that are too static and does not do anything revolutionary, they will end up being beaten by those who try to do things differently. As long as the feature you add on your site is aligned with your audience and your customers, I think it's smart to look into these kinds of technology in order to enhance the customer journey.
Super good point. I always get that. We usually have Rickard here. He always asks me like, Mattias, what is your best tips for brands watching, starting with this? And I always say the same thing. But Sia, from your perspective, because you've been in the process, you talked with Rickard for a while, then I came into picture and some other colleagues. So what would be your best tips for other brands out there to try this? Not your competitors, of course. We won't have them.
No,
but
they shouldn't try this. No, but I think the fact that you have a very good and scalable business model, so that we are free to try it on as many products we wanted to make a test. And it's sort of a subscription where we benefit from using you on a longer time frame as well. So I think that was just that being very flexible. That makes you dare doing such a thing, even though it might be a hard time economically. So you can really evaluate, but it doesn't have to be a huge investment and that you need to wait for the result for a long time to see that it actually works. So that I think was for me and for the decision making, that was really good.
Perfect. And Mia, I know we have some other customers in common, and I won't mention their name, but we have one particular that has a very unlike Sandqvist implementation. They work a little bit more with buttons to show the 3D viewer instead of having it first. What's your take from that? Because your agency is always behind the most award-winning e-commerces and all of these big players. What's your take on the UX and UI of this particularly?
For me, when we began implementing Sandqvist's 3D solution or technology, I was going or rooting for doing it the same way as the other brand because that felt more common. But then we went forward with Sia's suggestion to have it more implemented and integrated with the product image slider on the product page. And now afterwards, I feel that that's a better way to do it because then you just accidentally end up spinning that bag and you're like, wow, this is cool. On the other side, where you have to trigger it by pressing a button that says something like show in 3D, it's easy to miss that button. And I just simply think that it's better to integrate it where it's where you expect pictures to be from the start.
And that was a sort of like it came from you guys to begin with, that you said that you don't see the same engagement rate when you actually need to choose looking at 3D, and when you do it, then you see a high engagement rate. So that the suggestion to begin with having 3D first came from you guys, and then it sort of snowballed into having it into the full carousel instead of choosing between the two. And I think that I think that is a way to go in general, because you don't want to have them choose between the one or the other. But it was it was nice that it was actually possible. Like that was not something we took for granted, and also to be able to test like where the 3D position should be in the carousel.
I remember that being like a deal breaker question from you guys at Sandqvist. It was like, we are interested in Fibbl, but first of all, will it be possible to implement it to the product carousel? And we were like, let us check. And then we were like, yeah, this will do. And then we could proceed with the project. So it's a good decision.
Isn't that a saying that for every click you have, you drop X amount of people?
Yeah.
I think that tells in favor for what we choose. And I happen to have data on that that I can share. And I think that the benchmark that we see when it comes to the old button implementation, it's not bad. Like it was our best practice 1 year ago, but we learned so fast with the industry. I mean, there is a reason for why Meta is called not Facebook anymore, and why we have people running around with this Vision Pro and stuff like that. Yeah. So we learned. So what that client has and some other ones is the best practice 1 year ago. Yeah. But it goes so fast. But we see a benchmark on 9% of people clicking buttons, like when you have C in 3D. And then when they come in there, the results are amazing, both in terms of how long time they spend, the add to cart and conversion. So the majority of customers that I still have left, I think it's about 5 of them, they are all looking at you guys and some other guys and heading to that direction and currently working on that. So that's nice to see that we can lead the way with other customers. Because 9% compared to 65% on your site, obviously it has a huge impact on the end result, on the last row as well. So worth mentioning. But I think PDP is one thing, but I'm super interested to hear from both of you. If you just put a picture in front of you, if you just think a little bit of the future e-commerce, because I think we're nudging on the future right now, because you're one of the very few bag brands in the world that are doing this at such a large scale. How do you see these technologies, 3D and AR, can be incorporated in other placements of the funnel on the e-commerce?
We are seeing it in Google Shopping, and I think, or I hope that we can have virtual try-ons on bags in the future, where you can really see how the backpack fits. Because even though you see the dimensions, then you need to sort of, then you need to understand how it actually fits your back. Because you don't see your dimensions, and like seeing it in your phone, it's in relation to other items. So that's one thing I see in the future. And like you said previously about having the lifestyle images. So I really think that combined is where we're aiming. Yeah, that I would say is like where I hope to be, and just like enhancing AR even more.
And also when we look at the data, can we see something else when it comes to customer engagement or those kind of metrics?
Yeah, I guess we can share the interaction numbers, at least, how many that actually, So we did the analysis the other day, and out of all of the ones that can interact with Fibbl, 65%, I think it was 66, actually did it. So that means that 65% actually began to twist and turn the 3D model on the products that we have Fibbl on, of course. So that's really good. We have an average benchmark the last 30 days on all of our customers on 62.5%. So slightly higher than the benchmark. So that's an indicator that the UX and UI is good. And we also have seen that people stay longer. I think twice, 2.5 times more. Whatever that's good or bad, I don't know.
but Sia, how do you value like an increased engagement on your site?
I would value that. I mean, that means someone stays and has something to look at and something to do. The attention span of a customer is not a very long one or a high one in general. So just having them looking and twisting and turning on the product means that it gives them something and that it gives them a value to stay. So I for me that's a good sign. As we talked about as well, like having different metrics, both return rate and of course in the end conversion rate and add to cart rate is important, but it's also like it might even have a negative effect in terms of someone not buying the product, but that could also mean that they realize already now that it's not for them, that it doesn't have, or that it has features that they didn't appreciate. So we hope that it will, of course, have a positive effect overall and increase conversion, but especially making them make that purchase, making an informed purchase so that they know what they will get. And as you said, like having it more like a physical experience. And in a store, you don't have as much traffic, of course, but like then you might have a customer coming back once or twice and looking before they actually make their decision. And even if it's a hassle-free process to order online, we want them to really think of to really make that decision informed and not taking the decision at home. We rather have them making the decision online.
Yeah, I think that sometimes I forget that because we live in such a digital space. But you mentioned that you worked in retail before. And I have a few friends working in retail as well, and I know one important metric is actually how long they physically stay within their four walls, and there's a whole psychologically how they walk around the store and what they're exposed for and so on. But if you take a step back and really think about it, what does it mean that someone stays 2.5 times longer on the website? It means that you spend 2.5 times more. You experience the brand 2.5 times more longer. That time could have been spent at a competitor of yours. So it's super easy to make an order on Sandqvist. I have done one myself. Super easy, the checkout is smooth and everything. But the experience is also one thing. I think it would be a more memorable experience. And next time they buy a bag, they might remember some of the features, Fibbl and not Fibbl, whatever USPs you have on the site, that makes them want to come back and buy from you instead of competitor X and Y.
Yeah,
I think that's another way of seeing time spent on site. Yeah. And then I guess maybe you know more about that. It's a whole philosophy and science of what you can do with that time. Like, I mean, you have the attention for 2 times longer. You can do stuff with that. You can have pop-ups and you can other things. So it's really interesting to see it from that way as well.
Yeah,
I think.
And also when it comes to the engagement, we are working with over 50 brands right now.
Yeah.
Do you see that across other customers, or is this just a one-time off that spend more time on Sandqvist products?
No, we definitely see that they spend more time. 2.5 times that we have seen on your site is a little bit longer than the benchmark. So that's very interesting. But that could also be because you have a more technical product than other customers. So we have a lot of shoe brands, and a shoe is a shoe. Like a bag, you have pockets and you have like water resistant material and stuff like that. So I think that could be a reason. We do see that on Sandqvist and some others, approximately a user that begins to interact with 3D also does it 1.5 times. So it means that they go to another product and experience it on average. So that's also really interesting and a good indicator that they felt like it was something positive that made them want to explore more. As you said, maybe looking for more information to make a more well-informed decision, whatever that is, to buy or not buy. So we see that. But I think one of the tips that I give my other customers, just to put these numbers in context, is like how many people are actually looking at your 4th and 5th and 6th photo, because that is the equivalent. So you can either, as a consumer, you can look at the details you want to look at, or you have to go through 4 images just to see the detail that you want to see. So that's a pretty interesting metric to maybe put into context to see whatever it could gain for that brand, basically.
So from your point of view, Mattias, what were the challenges in this project?
Not too much, I think. I think we were pretty aligned on the actual UX and UI. I think the goal was very clear, and we all had a hypothesis that it's a good guess that UX that we ended up with would help. I think that the most challenges that we have were in the production phase, maybe about how do we want to present the product, because you have some products that is more complex than others, that has more features, and there's maybe 10 different ways to shoot them. And you had your best practices for the photos, and then we have our machines that need to capture the same thing in 3D, and you have things on the ground, we have things in the air. I'm not going to go into the technical things about how we do it, but I think it was a bit of trial and error in the production phase to really make sure that Sia and your colleagues on the creative department was really happy with how the products was presented.
Okay.
But I think it turned out pretty well at the end.
But I think it is a challenge because, as you said, a shoe is a shoe, and it's, I guess, fairly easy to display once you know how to display one shoe. And here we have multiple bags, and sometimes my impression is that it's almost easier, like the backpacks are usually quite easy for you to display, and our main challenge, I would say, is our handbags, because we have the straps and we don't really know how to display them accurately, or like should they be laying down or up and so on. So I mean, we are still in a process of like tweaking and knowing how to display everything, but it's also that's the fun of it, I think, to sort of see how we should present everything for our customers, and also then see where is it crucial, like which bags, where does it really make a difference, and so on.
For sure. And I think for us it's a great learning curve, because we have done shoes for a while, and we are pretty damn good at it.
Yeah, we've done thousands of shoes, so it's.
But for bags, this was one of the like bigger projects we had, and having someone like Sandqvist holding our hands is great. I mean, to develop that category. Yeah. So I think we learn a lot of things along the way as well. And the dimensions was one feature that came out of this. One feature that we haven't talked about so much, but was also a consequence of this, is that you can now control in the 3D viewer, you can control what part you want to zoom in at. So before we had a generic zoom. So when you zoom in, we zoomed in at the center. Now with 2 fingers on the mobile phone, you can switch to the left corner and then zoom in. And that was a consequence of the strap thing that we talked about, because you had some handbags where the straps was supposed to go like this, and then when you zoomed into the white. So we developed that. So that is also a nice result or consequence that came out of this, and how we improve the product over time.
And Sia, how do you see 3D, or the development of 3D? How do you see? Can you use 3D in more dimensions of your business moving forward?
Yeah, I really think so, and we are discussing that as well ongoingly. But both using it in marketing. I think that will be really exciting and more profitable in many ways as well, because it's a high quality product picture or that we can, or asset that we can use. But then also in wholesale at fairs or to our agents and distributors, and also just to supply this to them to use for selling in products into stores and so on. And hopefully we can also use it in our own stores in retail. So I think, I think there are several opportunities, and especially for Omni-channels to use it and to create more of a cohesive experience with this.
Yeah, Mattias, do you also have some news in this space with development, or do you have something to share around that?
Not really any development, so I think it's just a matter of finding the right timing and doing the things. But I couldn't agree more with what you said. I mean, there are now we are always talking about D2C and B2C, but a lot of your business and other businesses is also relying on B2B. And there are salespersons out there that can not physically have 200 bags with them when they go to fairs. Yeah. So when we get to that stage and we become an incorporated part in that strategy as well, I think that's going to be a nice addition to everything, and in the physical stores as well. Both for the consumers that comes into the store to experience the bags, but maybe also to create more immersive experiences. Like with the 3D file, you can do a lot of things. Like you said, it's a reusable asset. So I know one idea that I talked with your colleague was to 3D print a massive bag that you can have in the middle of the store. And that's a cool thing, but I think it also could help you to stick out from the competitors that are on the same street. So glad to hear that you all think that this is the beginning, and I'm very much excited to continue to explore this as well.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so I think the time's up for today. Thank you very much for joining this episode. And if you guys have any questions, you can send a DM to me or Mattias on LinkedIn. And thanks for tuning in again, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.